smile as you're on candid camera. Some of you remember that show, some of you may not, but anyway. I'm an old fart, so I remember those things. At least I think I do. Oh well, anyway. I am Venerable Man Shing, and I am a Buddhist monk from the Chinese Zen school of Buddhism. And I was ordained in Taiwan at Fo Kuang Mountain Monastery. That's Fo Kuang Shan in Chinese. It's on the southern tip of the island. And in 1991, I became a fully ordained Buddhist monk. And this came as a result of several years of training. And of course, then later, when I returned to the United States, I was under the tutelage of the Venerable Tai Huang at the Buddhist temple in New Britain, Connecticut.
Can you speak a little louder, please?
Oh yeah,
That stove thing makes so much noise.
okay.
Just the temperature, shut it down and down. Over on the wall.
Here?
Yeah. Just looking to the left. Top.
Takes a while.
Yeah.
I'll do my best. In short, I became a fully ordained Buddhist monk in the Chinese Zen tradition. And before that, of course, I came from a mixed family of both Jewish and Christian traditions. And did a number of years of study. Graduated from Cal State University at Fullerton with a degree in both anthropology and forensic archaeology. I later, of course, after college, went to work for the federal government, starting out with the U.S. Forest Service, and then served for a time at a military base at El Toro in California, and then served the Department of Justice, and then finished up with that. And of course I retired. And I retired in 1990 actually, and in 1991 I went to Taiwan and did my ordination and training to become a Buddhist monk. Since that, I have served largely at Linzone Temple in Worcester. I don't know if any of you people are familiar with that temple. It's on the Gold Star Boulevard side of town. And I also have been a guest speaker and also assistant to not only the abbess at the Linzone Temple in Worcester, but also several other temples between Massachusetts, Georgia, and Florida. So we travel along, a bit. So I also, when I was studying as a student, I did a lot of traveling, both in Europe and Japan, and also I spent a couple years living in the Middle East, particularly in northern Israel. So, that all said, now you know my life story. Well, you know part of it anyway. But anyway, I learned a lot along the way, and of course realized there was a whole bunch more I had to learn, and I'm still learning. I don't know, it's probably going to be many lifetimes before, I finally get the picture, and I'm hoping that maybe that will come sooner rather than later, but it's like a fine wine, it has to have its time. But today, I thought I might do some musings on the whole idea of kindness and what that can entail, and especially in relation to the times we are now currently living in. I mean, who could have guessed in the year 2020 that we were going to end up in the midst of a pandemic? Who could have guessed that some of us have lost family members, some of us have lost friends, neighbors, even people we didn't like, to that pandemic? And even still, the pandemic is not over. The news media is telling you this because they just don't have anything else to say. But the truth is, it is still with us in all its myriad forms. And I suspect it will be with us for a while. Even with the vaccinations and everything else, it's still going to be with us because it too has its living energy. It's a virus. And to survive, it duplicates different iterations of itself. Okay? So it's just one of the realities, really, of living itself. If you're a living being, whatever form you have, or if you're a formless being, there's always some kind of constellation of forces that you are subject to, and that you are also connected to. Okay? So, with this in mind, I mean, well, you might ask, well, where does kindness fit in with all this? It fits in everywhere, every little nook and corner. Because every moment really counts. Even when we're frustrated and angry about a situation or about ourselves, it's largely ourselves, really, but also situations can make you a little crazy, and sometimes a rude neighbor or something, will get under your skin. Or a relative might be a problem. A lot has to do with how we choose to either learn or not learn from it. Whether we choose to explore what kindness is. Some people are afraid to even go there. Because it is the forest perilous. It's like Lancelot, in the stories of the Round Table. He had to go into the forest perilous, where there were highwaymen or robbers, wild animals ready to tear you apart. But there's that little spark that was in him. That was the Grail, by the way. Today you see on the History Channel, ancient aliens or whatever you want to call it, and they have a thing, on the Grail, what is the Grail, and people are looking for it all over the place, and it's almost like, the other one is Curse of Oak Island or whatever the thing is. But you got to ask yourself, where is it really? Is it something that somebody has or has hidden away? Is it a thing? What is the real Grail here? And this is a question to ask. And this was a question, of course, that was asked many times of the Buddha. The different people in his wanderings that he met, up in the borderlands of the Himalayas, and his journeys throughout parts of India, people had a similar question. What is enlightenment? What is loving kindness? What is patience? What is forbearance or perseverance? What is the real true strength that we all have? And of course, depending on the population and the culture of the people that he was with, he found various skillful ways to answer that question, because he had to explore that question for himself. It became his life quest when he was still yet a young man. And the Buddha himself, when he was a young man, was an heir apparent to the throne of Magda. His father was a king. And of course, there are many tales about the Buddha and his life, and also about his previous lives, ranging from being an animal to, a huntsman in the woods. But these are questions that, regardless as to of your culture, they come up. And it's good that it does, because these things are useful tools. Whether it's the legends of the Grail, and the Knights of the Round Table, it's the legends of Antioch, the legends of the Medina, the legends of King Solomon, or the great legends of the peoples of this continent who were here long before we were, the First Nations people. They're all useful tools to get at that little nut, that kernel of what we really are. We have physical bodies, yes, appearances, and there's a beauty in that. It's both beautiful and it's also at the same time horrific. It can be. Just as a bear in the woods, and I've seen a fair number of them. I live in Barrie, and it's kind of like here. There's a lot of woods around, and I go roaming around in the woods, making a pest of myself. A pest is pester-no-me. That's my job. And I've seen quite a few bears, just the black bears. And when I lived in California as a sweet young thing, I saw grizzly bears too, because I used to wander around in the woods, in both northern and southern California. One of the favorite pastimes I have is hiking. I love to go hiking. And when I was really young and brash, I even did a little small amount of rock climbing. Had a few bumps and bruises and spills from that one, but it was all worth it. Well earned, But yet, here you have, a bear is beautiful. It's a beautiful creature. But it can also be very horrific. If it's sick or rabid or hungry, you don't want to be too close. You don't want to be close and chummy with them, okay? However, if you can see the beauty in yourself, you can see the beauty even in the most horrific of creatures. And that's where the kindness gets born, you see. Because we all share something in common, and that is we are living, breathing beings, human and non-human. Even those beings that we can't see, because it's a given that, this is not the ultimate answer in reality. And you don't have to pursue it too terribly far. When you start getting down into atoms and molecules and the glue that holds this together to make it as the base product of wood, never mind the construction of the wood, which was dependent on a pair of hands, but even before that was dependent on a seed germinating in the soil somewhere under particular conditions. We're the same way. We're subject to particular conditions. And we, too, are subject to cause and effect. And again, kindness gets born out of that fertilized soil of understanding who and what we actually are. In these times, kindness is really at a premium. And especially when you see so much violence happening and so much suffering. And that kindness gets born out of what? The suffering. We all suffer. It might be just an itch, mosquito bite. Oh, especially on a muggy summer day and you're getting eaten alive, and it's very hard not to go, gotcha! When poor devil was just trying to get a drink. Now, what about the lake out there? Well, he was hungry. He was a hungry little bug, and you know what I grew up with that. And then when you get into the wider spectrum of the idea of suffering, there's all different kinds. Suffering isn't just limited to, backache or a pesky mosquito. Sometimes people act out when they're suffering. Sometimes to the extreme where we have mass shootings. Sometimes it's because some people fall into the trap of extremes. You're either for us or you're against us. And I'm not referring to Guinness as the stout that people drink in the pub. Oh, kindness can be born out of that, clink glasses and have a sip, but no. When you get that division, what is that born from? It's the suffering of delusion. Because a person feels that they are somehow cut off. They're separate from, this guy over here. Doesn't matter whether he's a Democrat or a Republican. It's that separation. Doesn't matter what the politicians are doing in that sense of being a label. It's what's motivating them deep down, because it's what's motivating us. And what affects that motivation? Because that also skews your perception of what you think is real and not real. And these things are actually very, very deep issues, deep things to contemplate, because more so now than ever before, we need that in-depth contemplation. You know, even if, you know, you just sit there and you like to sing and maybe nobody else appreciates your singing, but you got a little spot where you can sing and you can belt it out in a song. You can put it out in front of you and really look at it. Or you can sit quietly in a little spot, just about anywhere, either in a busy train station, an airport, a library, or waiting for a friend to finish their shopping. You know, like a market basket, you know, they have that little area there where you can sit down and, you know, get a refreshment or something, get a cup of coffee, and wait, you know, for your friend to check out. Or you can be here, sitting quietly and just taking a minute to reflect. What creates the fertile ground for kindness? And what is it that's the truth within us, the reality within us? What is the ultimate reality? And there are very many, many, many beautiful approaches to this. I mean, you look at, you know, the Islamic songs. Some of them are absolutely amazingly beautiful. You know, beautiful, beautiful songs and singing. You know, even the Upanishads can be sung, or devotional songs about Shaktipat. Okay, what it means, the feminine side of you, what does it mean? Because you have both male and female sides to you. And that song from the Hindu tradition, the Shaktipat, recognizes that and rejoices in it. Just as the songs about Sri Ganesh is the quiet wisdom of the elephant that can go through the forest without a sound or even a footprint. That's why you see, you know, Sri Ganesh with the image of an elephant. There's a whole legend that goes along with that, of course. But even in the devotional songs of the Hindu tradition too, you see this. Or, you know, the Orthodox zikr, okay, that is sung. Really comes from nishkor, which is to remember in Hebrew. So, even in the Christian tradition, you have many, many beautiful songs. What? To remember. To remember the beauty that's in you. Because once that is remembered, kindness is born. It is literally the blue lotus that emerges out of the muddy waters of the Nile, to use an ancient symbolism there, because even the Egyptians had this idea. And in our tradition, we have many different types of contemplations that we do. And one of them also is the blue lotus. Very interesting there. The ancient Egyptians had it. The ancient Vedic peoples had it. And here we are today. And we're still utilizing those tools to recognize the divinity within us. And in this time, it is more important, the most important thing in the face of, the greed, the hatred, the delusion, the anger. That can all be utilized as the fertilizer for the blue lotus to emerge and open up. Because what it does is it reconnects you. You're not separate anymore. You're not up here, you're not down there, you're not over there, you're not over there, you're right here. In fact, this very morning, I had my driving meditation. I got lost at least 3 times trying to get here. And at one point, I finally hit it right. It was just sheer dumb luck because my compass was spinning like this, It's like, oh, the polar vortex is here. And I ended up in Montague, the little village that's down this way. And I gave up. I thought I had gone right, and I ended up on this dirt road. And I have this low-slung vehicle, Mercury Grand Marquis, that belongs to a very good friend of mine. She loaned me the vehicle to use. And here I am doing a mud dance with the thing on the outskirts of this little village of Montague, and I had to come back in. And at that point, I just sat in the car for a second. I said, I'm lost. That's what it is. I'm lost. And I saw this young couple walk in, and right in front of me was the door that led into this little tiny diner. Some of you guys might know this place. If you're from this immediate area, you know probably the place I'm talking about. So I walked in there, and they had one waitress that was taking care of everybody, and she actually paused and took a moment to help me. The minute she did, one of the patrons says, "Oh, I think I know where you're going. And yeah, let me show you from here how to get there." And between the waitress and this other elderly gentleman who was having his breakfast, I finally got the directions to get here. I mean, I had it, from the computer and all that, but this was priceless. Computers, they're machines. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, whatever. If I had followed completely the directions that it gave me, I would not be here talking to you now. I would probably be in the Twilight Zone. But good folks in a little town there saved the day and saved my little cracklins. And so here I am. And I give a great vote of thanks, and I did, thank them profusely in the diner. Because then it was fairly easy to find my way here. I've been here a couple times before, but I didn't always drive. It was always somebody else driving, so I was actually starting from scratch. But again, we have to go through the forest perilous, don't we? With the lions and tigers and bears, oh my. And that's just a little everyday example of it, But the payoff of this is that you remember that. So next time somebody comes through the little town of Barrie and I'm on the street corner there or sitting on a bench and they're lost, I'm going to try my best to help them. find where they need to go. You know. And if I can't quite do it, I know my neighbors do know. Yeah. One little phone call or walk over there to the library real quick. Come with me, you know. We'll find somebody that knows this area better than me, and they'll be able to give you a little quick sketch of how to get where you need to go. You know. And in the meantime, maybe buy them a cup of coffee so they have a minute to kind of relax and feel better about being lost. Because you never know where you might end up. Little old Barry could be somebody's Shangri-La. So that's really the upshot, you know, of what's been on my mind lately. And that's, you know, how do we bring kindness back? Or did it even ever leave? Because, you know, all sorts of afflictive emotions can hide it for a while, you know. Make it go hide in the brush like a bunny rabbit does. But bringing it out opens everything up again. And it's that very thing that gets us through the really hard times. And I really don't need to say much more about that because you all know about that. You're going through it just like me right now, this very minute. And the most important piece of this is being present in this very moment and not worrying about what's going to happen. I mean, that stuff will flash through your head, but just say, okay, not here yet, not here yet. And the stuff in the past, let that go too. The only thing that's worth retaining is what you learned from the past. That is worth bringing into the present, and then from the present you keep yourself open because your treasure chest is only that full. It is not that full. So there's lots more to put in there. And if nothing else, at least remember that. You have the keys to the treasure chest. So I'm just going to leave it at that and open it up for questions, comments. Don't throw any rotten food at me. You know, and please don't shoot me. It would make a terrible mess. Any questions, comments, hiccups?
I thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.